Hello family. Welcome to Afri Stories, home for captivating African tales. Hit like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now, sit back, relax and enjoy today's story. Anaya stepped lightly over the polished marble threshold of Jax Mercer's penthouse, her polishing cloth tucked into the back pocket of her uniform pants. Midnight traffic hummed in the streets below, but up here, on the 78th floor, the city's pulse was distant and muted. She paused at the threshold of the master suite and inhaled, the air cool and scented with orchids. The lights were dimmed to a soft amber glow, the curtains drawn halfway to reveal the top of the skyline, a glittering constellation of distant windows and street lamps. She slipped off her sensible flats and pivoted on one heel, letting her heels press into the plush carpet. She never got used to this luxury, the glossy surfaces, the gleaming chrome, the unobstructed view of neon signs that went on forever. Every night, she told herself it was just her job, keep the place spotless, make him happy. But sometimes, when she glanced at the row of awards on the mahogany shelf in his office or the framed patent certificates in the hallway, she felt like an imposter in a world she could never truly inhabit. She set down her cleaning caddy by the bathroom door and reached for the feather duster. Before she could turn on the overhead lights, a faint glow caught her eye, a slender crystal bottle perched on the granite countertop. It was about 8 inches tall, with a narrow neck and an ornate stopper shaped like a teardrop. The glass was etched with swirling patterns that seemed to shift when she moved. A soft, indigo light pulsed within, as if the liquid inside were alive. Anaya frowned. She'd cleaned here for 6 months and had never noticed it. She checked the bottles of olive oil and premium hand soap. None of them glowed. Heart hammering with a mix of curiosity and dread, she stepped forward. "Sir must have left it out by mistake," she whispered to herself. "Maybe it's a prototype for some exclusive health drink." Her mind raced. She knew she shouldn't touch it. No label meant no permission. But the temptation was magnetic. One sip couldn't hurt, right? She glanced toward the closed door of the wardrobe. No sight of cameras. The soft hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. Her pulse stuttered. Anaya uncorked the bottle. A gentle chime echoed, soft and crystalline. She held it up to her lips and took a tentative sip. The liquid slipped down her throat like silken fire, warm, tinged with honey and something vaguely metallic. A rush of heat spread from her chest to her temples. The floor swayed. She gripped the counter edge, knuckles whitening. "Whoa," she murmured. She set the bottle down, but her hand trembled. Something was happening. Her pulse raced, her breath came in shallow pants, and the room seemed to breathe around her. The orchids on the vanity appeared to tilt toward her, their petals flickering in the low light. Her skin felt alive, every hair follicle buzzing. She swallowed again, compelled by the memory of the taste. Another sip, and the world sharpened. Colors deepened. The amber light glowed brighter. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out rational thought. She staggered toward the bathroom, water beginning to hiss behind the frosted glass door. The moment her sneakers hit the cool tile, her body seized with heat. Steam curled from the shower head, blurring the glass. She blinked, towel in hand, and pushed the door open, bracing herself on the marble wall. The warmth washed over her, and she stepped beneath the stream. Water met her skin like electricity, cascading down her back in heated rivulets. The overwhelming sensation made her arch her back, eyes closing as she tilted her head. "Just a second," she whispered, fingers digging into the tile. She pressed her lips to the cool porcelain to steady herself. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might breach her ribs. The towel slipped from her shoulders, pooling at her feet. She barely registered the chill of the tile beneath her bare toes. All that existed was the fire inside. Suddenly, the door clicked. Her breath caught. Someone was here. A flood of fear mixed with the residual thrill of the formula. Her towel was gone, but her composure hadn't returned. She glanced toward the entry. The handle turned slowly, quietly. Anaya's mind raced. She grabbed the towel and wrapped it around her, crossing her arms to conceal as best she could. The next moment, the door swung open, and cold air rushed in along with the silhouette of Jax Mercer. He paused in the doorway, framed by the hallway's dim light. Even in his tailored trousers and damp shirt, water droplets clinging to his broad shoulders, he exuded power. Every inch the tech mogul whose name was on every headline, the man who commanded LinkedIn feeds and boardrooms alike. His eyes narrowed. He stepped inside without closing the door, letting steam billow out. "Anaya," he said, voice low but edged with steel. "What did you do?" Anaya's mind whirled. "Sir, I thought it was a drink. I didn't know." "You didn't know?" He strode closer, water sloshing with each step. The towel around her chest trembled. "Do you know how dangerous that is? That formula is my life's work. Prototype. Unstable in untested subjects." Her cheeks flamed. "I'm sorry, sir. I was curious." Her voice shook, but underneath was something else, an odd defiance. She realized she wasn't panicking. The formula's effect was still coursing through her, giving her a fearless edge. She held his gaze. Jax's jaw clenched. He leaned in, voice dropping. "Curiosity? In my private lab? My family's legacy?" She swallowed. "I just wanted to know what it tasted like." The words spilled out before she could second-guess them. Her heart hammered, but not with regret. With exhilaration. He stared at her for a long moment. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Finally, he sighed, a sound caught between anger and reluctant awe. He held out a towel. "Dry off." Anaya took it, wrapping it tightly around her. Water sluiced down her calves, but she didn't move. The bottle still glowed on the counter, shards of liquid light trapped in glass. Jax turned and crushed it underfoot. Crystal fragments snapped like ice. The glow winked out. Anaya flinched at the sound. A sudden irrevocability. He locked eyes with her. "You're fired," he said, voice cold. The words hit her like a blow. She blinked. "Fired?" He shook his head. "No, another beat. Not fired." Relief flashed through her, quickly replaced by shock. "I promoted," he continued. "Personal assistant. With benefits." Her mouth fell open. She stared at him, incredulous. "Benefits?" He nodded. "And daily access to the lab, under supervision." He held out his hand. "Do you accept?" Anaya hesitated just a heartbeat before she took his hand. It was warm, firm. "Yes," she said, voice steady. He released her and gestured toward the door. "Get dressed. We start tomorrow morning at 8. And Anaya, no more unapproved tasting." She offered him a small, genuine smile. "Understood, sir." As she stepped out, towel clutched against her chest, she felt the world tilt. Her life had transformed in the span of one midnight sip. From maid to personal assistant, from observer to confidant. And Jax Mercer, billionaire, genius, enigma, had placed his trust in her. She closed the bathroom door behind her and paused in the hallway. The city lights winked through the window at the end of the corridor, as if encouraging her onward. Anaya took a deep breath, smoothing her hair. In that moment, she knew nothing would ever be the same, and she couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would bring. Sunlight crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Jax Mercer sat behind his sleek mahogany desk, reviewing the security footage on the holoscreen. The boardroom screensaver blinked off, replaced by the recording of Anaya humming softly as she polished the marble counters. She lifted the crystal bottle with a curious glance, uncorked it, and drank straight from its neck. His breath caught in his throat as he recognized the movement. She lingered over the bottle's mouth, savoring its contents. He replayed the scene, frame by frame. His formula, years of private research, wasn't just a business asset. It had been intended for clinical trials under the strictest conditions. Yet here was his new assistant in waiting, intoxicated by its power. The boardroom door chimed. His personal assistant, Vivian DeWitt, stood at the threshold, tablet in hand, brows knit. "Sir, the board meeting is ready. They need your vote on the West Coast merger." Jax didn't look away. "Cancel it," he said without turning. "Reschedule for tomorrow." Vivian hesitated. "They're upset. Critical votes today." He sighed. "Not today. Set up a meeting with Dr. Patel and counsel. Full analysis of the compound in her system." Her eyes widened. Without her permission? Find a way, he ordered. Meanwhile, Anaya sat in her modest apartment, staring at her phone. The NDA document glowed on the screen, clauses demanding secrecy, loyalty, and strict adherence to protocols. She read the experimental section twice. I promise, she whispered. She signed, and her phone vibrated, an incoming call from a private number. It was Jax. Where are you? I'm at home, sir. Come to my office. Now. Yes, sir. She caught a taxi through the city's morning rush. 15 minutes later, she was in Mercer Tower's gleaming lobby. Security nodded as she showed her credentials. The elevator soared upward. She stepped into Jax's office, heart pounding. He stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled up. The holoscreen displayed her vitals. He motioned to a chair. Sit. She obeyed. He pointed to graphs, heart rate, neural activity. Your adrenaline spiked to dangerous levels. The formula altered your synapses. Am I okay? She asked. He met her gaze. You'll recover in hours, not days. I've authorized detox protocols. Relief and something else flickered through her. Thank you, sir. He leaned forward. Did you enjoy it? She paused. It was terrifying, but exhilarating. He tapped his lip. My aim was empathy and openness. Arousal was unexpected. She flushed. I'm sorry. He held up a hand. No. I want honesty. He slid a hollow slate across the desk. Take notes. We start microdoses next week. Her fingers trembled as she recorded impressions. He watched, eyes intense. You handled this well. She swallowed. I'll do my best. He rose and came around the desk. Lunch with Vivian. Board proxy meeting. Prep for genetics lab. He studied her. Can you manage? Anaya nodded confidently. Yes, sir. He smiled. Ms. Ramirez, he said, using his mother's maiden name, welcome aboard. That morning, Jax strode down the marbled corridor to the executive boardroom, briefcase in hand. The panel of directors sat primly around the elongated table, their crisp suits reflecting the perfection he demanded. He tapped his high-heeled shoes lightly, catching glances. There was tension in the air, the West Coast merger loomed large. He placed a sealed folder on the table. I regret to inform you, he began, voice steady, that we must postpone today's vote. Murmurs rippled through the room. Chairman Keller raised a brow. Postpone? On what grounds, Mr. Mercer? Jax inhaled. A matter of regulatory compliance. We've encountered an unplanned variable in our biochemical division. He paused, scanning their faces. Until we resolve it, I can't in good conscience proceed. A sudden quiet reigned over them. Keller opened his mouth, closed it, and nodded curtly. Very well. We reconvene tomorrow. As the directors gathered their papers, Jax let them leave first. He remained, watching the last of them file out. Proprietary secrecy was his creed, risk management his obsession. Yet the formula's unauthorized ingestion had shifted his priorities. He swiped the folder from the table and stepped into the private elevator. Doors closed with a soft hiss. In the solitude of his suite, he paused by the window. The city stretched out, complications and possibilities intertwined. He replayed the vision of Anaya's steady gaze as she sipped the compound. Not fear, but raw defiance. That single moment had rewritten his assumptions. He rose and headed back to his office. A new role had been cast, mentor, supervisor, and perhaps something else entirely. The CFO, Dana Rivers, frowned. Financially, this delay hurts our stock performance. Jax considered this, then nodded. Transparency and safety drive long-term value. Shareholders may balk now, but they'll thank us later. Rivers exhaled. Understood. With that, Jax stepped back into the elevator, mind racing with the day's altered trajectory and urgency. At the genetics lab, Dr. Patel led Anaya into a sterile chamber. We've upgraded to microinfusions, she said, adjusting a precise stainless steel pump. Walls bristled with sensors. Your feedback is crucial. How does it feel cognitively? Emotionally? She handed Anaya a journal. Record every sensation. When the pump hissed and a needle pricked her arm, Anaya barely noticed. Seconds later, warmth bloomed along her veins, a subtle glow of energy. Patel watched the monitors. Stable. We'll increase dosage tomorrow. That evening, Anaya returned to the penthouse. She found Jax by the balcony, city lights reflecting in his eyes. They discussed the charity gala's schedule. She admitted her nerves. Public speaking wasn't her forte. He offered quiet encouragement. You have one story, resilience through science. Stay true to that. She smiled genuinely. He handed her a glass of water. Rest now. Tomorrow, real trials begin. As Anaya walked down the hallway toward her quarters, anticipation thrummed completely through her. Each step blurred the line between servant and partner. The formula had heightened more than her senses. It had awakened potential she hadn't known. Tomorrow awaited, and she would face it with newfound resolve. Back in her quarters that night, Anaya lay on the bed, the city's pulse distant. Moonlight traced patterns on the ceiling as she thought of her journey, from dusty corridors to labs, from penury to purpose. Tomorrow she would present data, coordinate trials, and stand beside a man who believed in her. Her future felt within reach always. Steam curled in lazy tendrils through the marble-pillared bathroom, wreathing the twin vanity mirrors in feathery vapor. Jax was already there, eyes narrowed with scrutiny as he monitored the real-time data streaming across the tablet. The holographic readouts showed her neural responses to the microdose they had administered that morning, spikes of activity in the hypothalamus, limbic surges registering heightened pleasure thresholds. He traced a fingertip along the graph, lips pressed into a thin line. Anaya swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. "Sir," she whispered, "am I normal?" He met her gaze, and for a moment, the distance between boss and assistant vanished. "Your physiology is remarkable," he said softly. "Pain, fear, fatigue, they're all suppressed. But so are restraint and doubt." He tapped the tablet to minimize the graphs, then set it on the edge of the tub. "I want to see how the compound performs under natural conditions." Her pulse quickened. Natural conditions? He uncapped the ivory bottle that sat beside the shampoo, another test sample. "Yes." He lifted it to the light. "A refined formula. We call it X prime. It will help regulate responses more smoothly. But first, I need to understand the peak effect in an uncontrolled environment." Anaya realized what he meant, the shower. She glanced at the steam, running water, the pillowed granite floor. "You're testing on me here?" He nodded, serious. "I'll observe. We'll measure changes in your baseline arousal while you bathe." He gestured. "Remove your uniform." Her cheeks warmed. The towel from the night before hung on a heated rack, but the uniform lay meticulously pressed on a stool. She swallowed and reached for the blouse, unbuttoning it one by one, breath hitching as the cool air brushed her skin. She stepped out of the skirt, folded it, and placed it on the stool. Her lacy undergarments clung to her like tiny shards of silk. Jax looked away respectfully, gaze on the floor. "You can step into the shower," he instructed. "I'll record from outside." She hesitated only a second before stepping in. The water crashed down, hot and enveloping. Microsensors embedded in the shower wall transmitted temperature and humidity data to the tablet. She closed her eyes, letting the water wash over her, caressing her arms, neck, and legs. The X-Prime bottle hovered at the edge of her awareness. He'd warned her one sip would heighten everything. He remained outside, voice calm. "Drink it now." Her hand trembled as she reached for the bottle. The water blurred her vision as she lifted it to her lips. The liquid met her tongue, crystalline heat coursing through her veins. A moan escaped, soft and involuntary. The steam thickened, the sound of water louder than her own breathing. "Good," Jax said, echoing from beyond the glass. "Close your eyes and focus on the sensation." Anaya leaned her head back, eyes shut. She felt the warmth pool at her core, expanding outward. Her muscles slackened, her arteries pulsed with tingling electricity. The mirrors began to sweat, droplets tracing imperfect rivulets down the glass. She opened her eyes just enough to catch her reflection. A figure trembling under the torrent of heated water, skin shining like polished obsidian. A new awareness unfolded, each drop felt articulate, communicating its cool descent. The water's edge where it met hot steam felt like the seam between two worlds. She inhaled, savoring the scents, her shampoo tinged with bergamot, the lingering aroma of his cologne from the towel she'd used last night. He had engineered everything to precision, from the iron fixtures to the patented formula. "Tell me what you feel," Jax commanded gently. Her voice came out breathy. "Every fiber alive," she managed. "Like I'm seeing color for the first time." He tapped the tablet. The readouts showed a plateau at optimal levels. "That's perfect," he murmured. "Now carefully step out." She obeyed, water sluicing down her thighs as she stepped onto the marble floor. Jax produced a plush towel, placing it gently around her. Her legs wobbled and he steadied her by the elbow, his palm warm, firm. She shivered, and he remembered she was still under the formula's effect. "Sit," he said, guiding her to the cushioned stool. "I need to attach these sensors." He secured small electrodes to her temples and wrists, wires snaking to the tablet. Each clip felt cool, almost clinical. When he was finished, he stepped back. "Now I'll apply a mild stimulus." He held a small, vibrating probe near the small of her back. "This will trigger tactile response data." Anaya's breath hitched. "Sir." "Just data," he reminded. He activated the probe. It vibrated softly, sending waves through her body. Her eyelids fluttered, and her chest rose, arousal edging from the core effect of the formula. "Intensity of sensation?" he asked, voice detached. "Overwhelming," she whispered. "But controlled." He nodded. "Ideal. Next, auditory response." He lowered the lights and played a track of whispered words through hidden speakers. Each phrase was recorded. She matched the script, describing thoughts that surfaced, memories of childhood water fights, her first kiss at a lakeside summer camp, her mother's scent mingled with lavender. The X-Prime unlocked emotional recall with vivid clarity. Jax's expression softened. "You're doing brilliantly." Her cheeks burned, but the sensation was nothing compared to her racing heart. He paused the recording. Final test, visual arousal. He produced a small, translucent hardware, an ocular aperture to stimulate the optic nerve directly. Her pulse fluttered at its mechanical hum. "Do it," she breathed. He placed it gently over her right eye. A flood of images played in her mind, gentle rain on a rooftop, molten copper streaming along a forge, and soft candlelight flickering over dark wood. Each image was designed to evoke primal warmth, and she felt the formula amplifying the effect. Memory and imagination intertwined, sensation and thought inseparable. She gasped, leaning back as her vision swam. He removed the aperture. Data complete. She collapsed back on the stool, chest heaving. The water droplets that remained on her skin felt like luminous jewels, and every fiber was twitching with residual stimulation. Jax tapped the tablet and displayed the summary. Optimal neural alignment, minimal risk indicators, and perfect integration of arousal and emotional recall circuits. Anaya's legs curled beneath her, and she laughed, a soft, shaking laugh that carried relief and exhilaration. "Does this happen to everyone?" she asked. Jax smiled, stepping close. "You're the first human I've tested this on." He brushed a wet curl from her cheek. "And you've exceeded expectations." She met his gaze. "So what now?" He wrapped the towel around her shoulders. "Now, we integrate these results into the final formula. But tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, we present to the board together." Anaya's breath caught. "To the board?" He nodded. "Your first-hand account will demonstrate safety and efficacy. They'll see the results, not just numbers, but your experience." Her mind whirled. From Maid to test subject to co-presenter before corporate titans. The magnitude felt dizzying, but thrilling. Jax guided her to the shower door and turned off the water. He handed her a robe. It was his, soft velvet. "Put this on. I'll meet you in the lab in an hour." She let him help her step into it, the fabric folding around her like a lover's arms. She shivered and he smiled gently. Back in her quarters, head filled with images and sensations, she realized she had crossed a threshold far beyond mere employment. She was a collaborator on the brink of revolutionizing human experience. Truly exceptional. Velvet curtains shielded the penthouse bedroom from dawn's pale light. 2 bedside lamps glowed, their amber beams warming the room. Anaya perched on the bed's edge, the white robe clinging to her frame. Though Jax had ordered rest, her mind replayed the shower lab. The formula's intensity still thrummed in her veins, leaving her both exhausted and restless, and deliciously alive tonight. A knock sounded at the door. Her pulse quickened. "Yes," she called, voice light. The door opened to reveal Jax Mercer, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit without a tie. His hair was still damp at the temples, fine strands catching the lamplight. He paused, taking her in, the way the robe clung to her curves, the shimmer of perspiration on her collarbone, and the flush on her cheeks. He swallowed against the tension in his throat. "Anaya," he said, stepping inside and letting the door close behind him. He crossed to the spot in front of her where he had placed a silk towel hours earlier. The formula's warmth had faded from her skin, but something else remained, desire, sharpened and unyielding. "Sir," she whispered, mindful of the boundary line he had drawn between professional and personal. Yet that line felt impossibly distant now. Jax picked up the towel and shook it open. "Put this on," he said, though his voice betrayed an undercurrent of reluctance. "I'll retrieve your uniform." She slid the robe aside, wrapping the towel over her chest and tying its ends at her back. The cool fabric skimmed her skin, and the formula's heat pulsed through her core. Jax averted his gaze, unzipped a garment bag and said, "Dry off and change." She rose, holding the towel closed, and moved toward him. "Sir," she began, tone playful, "does this suit me?" He glanced at her over his shoulder and paused with the uniform in hand. The tension between them crackled like live wires. His suit was expertly tailored, black with a faint pinstripe. The jacket would hang perfectly over her shoulders if she could fit in it, but it wasn't hers. It was a reminder of her status here, provisional and precarious. She stepped closer, so close their breath mingled. Her perfume, jasmine and sandalwood, drifted around him. She could see the way his jaw flexed as he fought for composure. "I think I look better in silk," she said, voice low. Jax set the uniform down. "This isn't a game, Anaya," he said, though his tone softened. He closed the distance between them until his cuff brushed her arm. "You're under contract. You've agreed to terms, confidentiality, professionalism, discretion." She looked up at him, eyes sparkling. "I haven't broken any terms, sir." She leaned her head back, exposing the curve of her throat. The towel slipped slightly, and her skin caught the light like molten ivory. His eyes darkened. "You drank an experimental formula without clearing it," he reminded, voice husky. "That is breach enough." Her pulse raced. "I took a risk," she countered. "And look where it led me." She brushed a damp curl from her face, letting it fall over her shoulder. "To you." Jax's breath hitched. He closed his eyes briefly and opened them, gaze locked on the swell of her chest beneath the towel. "Anaya, what happened, affects the way I see you." She smiled, bold and open. "Then see me," she whispered. "Not as a test subject. Not as an assistant. But as I am." He exhaled slowly, then reached out and cupped her jaw, thumb brushing her lower lip. The contact sent a lightning bolt through her. "You're dangerous," he murmured. She tilted her head into his palm. "So are you." He dropped his hand and stepped back, breathing hard. "I'm the one in control," he said, voice cracking. "I design formulas, orchestrate companies, predict outcomes. I do not let passion dictate my actions." Her lips curved. "Today, you've let things happen beyond your prediction." He shook his head as if to clear thoughts. "This isn't professional," he insisted, more to himself than to her. He reached for the uniform again. "Change. We continue tomorrow." Anaya watched him, heart pounding. She held the towel tighter, but the fabric strained. She realized she could step forward and erase the distance in an instant. She could cross that line and plunge them into consequences neither understood. Instead, she let the tension stretch. "Sir," she said softly, "may I ask you something?" He paused, uniform in hand. "Yes." She stepped closer again, lowering her voice to a whisper. "Do you believe what happened was only the formula? Or could it have been me?" Jax's gaze flicked to her eyes, dark and soulful. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The uniform slipped from his grasp and fell to the carpet. She gasped, reaching for it. He lifted his hand. "Don't," he said, voice tight. "I can't." Anaya let the towel drop. She turned slowly, facing the armoire, uniform in hand. The lamp light traced the line of her back, the swell of her hips. She paused as Jax took a step toward her, then another. He closed the distance until his chest brushed her back. She tensed, then let herself relax, leaning against him. He smelled of cedar and metal, a scent that grounded her. His heart pounded against her spine. A moment passed, taut and electric. Then Jax pressed his lips to her shoulder blade, soft and seeking. Anaya shivered. The towel lay forgotten at her feet. He straightened and turned her in his arms, tracing a finger down her arm. "Anaya," he whispered, voice thick with feeling. "What are we doing?" She lifted her face to his. "I'm offering you a choice," she said. "To break your rules. Or to keep them." His gaze searched hers. "I can't." She placed a finger on his lips. "Then don't speak." She cupped his face. "Show me." Jax hesitated for a heartbeat, then closed his eyes and leaned in. Their lips met, soft at first, then with growing urgency. Anaya's arms wrapped around his neck as he slid a hand to the small of her back. They sank onto the edge of the bed, silk sheets pooling around them. Each kiss was a negotiation, unsure, searching. Jax's control wavered with each brush of her lips. Anaya tasted his restraint, the faint tang of his cologne, and she pressed closer, willing to test the limits of his discipline. But just as their desire threatened to consume them, Anaya pulled back, eyes bright with unshed tears. "Do you want me," she asked, voice raw, "or the formula?" He froze, chest heaving. The moment stretched into an eternity. Finally, he pushed away gently. "Anaya," he said, voice thick. "I." She rose, wrapping the towel around herself again, picking up the uniform. "Then you must decide," she whispered, voice steady. "Because I'm done being an experiment." She slipped past him and began to dress, each motion deliberate. Jax watched, torn. When she fastened the skirt and straightened the jacket, she seemed poised and resolute. He stood, conflicted. "I'll send you for proper attire," he said, voice low. "I'm sorry." Anaya turned. Her eyes softened too. "I understand." She walked to the door and paused, hand on the handle. He swallowed. "Tomorrow," he said, "we discuss the future." She nodded once, then stepped out, closing the door behind her. Jax stood alone in the lamplight, the uniform on the floor and the echo of her presence heavy in the air. He sank onto the bed, running his hands through his hair. The line between formula and feeling had blurred beyond recognition. He closed his eyes, knowing tomorrow's dawn would bring a choice he might not be ready to make. Anaya closed the penthouse door behind her, heart pounding so fiercely it felt as if she might shatter the polished wood. She wrapped the plush terry robe tighter, its warmth a poor substitute for the fire that still blazed in her veins. Every nerve screamed with residual heat from the formula and from Jax's touch, his lips brushing her shoulder, that raw question on his lips. "Do you want me or the formula?" She had chosen self-respect that night, stepping away before desire could consume them both. Yet in the silence that followed, she realized how deeply he had undone her. Meanwhile, Jax stood alone in the master bedroom, the heavy uniform he'd laid out draped over the back of a chair like discarded armor. He ran a hand through damp hair, dark eyes haunted by memory. The faint scent of jasmine lingered on the pillow, the ghost of Anaya's presence. He replayed every moment, the way her eyes had glowed when she tasted the compound, the tremor in her voice as she whispered, "No calculations this time," and the quiet click of the door as she walked away. He paced, mind racing with corporate schedules and clinical protocols, but the image of her bold defiance eclipsed all else. Across the river, Anaya's small flat felt unbearably quiet. Moonlight slanted through thin curtains, casting latticed shadows across a lone photograph of her family on the dresser. She sat at the folding table, journal open, pen trembling in her hand. Earlier, she had chronicled neural readings and dosage schedules. Now she filled pages with a different calculus. What if my feelings aren't just chemistry? She wrote about her laughter with Jax during their first trial, her racing pulse when he watched her, questions she'd never dared ask until the bottle's glow revealed a new truth. A knock shattered the night stillness. Anaya's breath caught. Who could this be so late? She smoothed her hair, tightened the robe around her, and approached the peephole. Through the frosted glass, she made out Jax's silhouette, broad-shouldered, vulnerable. She opened the door, letting in a sliver of golden light. His gaze flickered to the chipped paint on the doorframe, then lifted to her eyes. In one hand he held a single white rose, in the other, a small takeout bag. "May I come in?" he asked, voice low, tentative. She stepped aside. He entered with careful courtesy, closing the door gently behind him. The rose brushed her robe as he placed it in a water-filled glass on the dusty windowsill. He set the container of noodles on the table and turned to face her. She noticed the crease of fatigue at his temple, the way his shoulders slumped beneath the weight of his suit. For the first time, she saw the man behind the mogul, raw, uncertain, capable of regret. "Anaya," he began, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm sorry." His words hung in the air, heavy with sincerity. She crossed her arms, mastering the tremor in her voice. "Sorry," she repeated, "is just a word unless it's backed by action." He nodded and slid into the folding chair opposite her. He peeled back the lids, releasing steam scented with ginger and garlic. "I treated you like data," he confessed, "a subject in my experiment." He met her gaze. "That was wrong. You're not a test tube, you're a person." She uncrossed her arms, curiosity warring with caution. "Then explain why it felt like I was living in your lab instead of my own skin," she challenged, voice soft but firm. Jax inhaled, closing his eyes momentarily. "Because I became obsessed with results," he admitted. "I forgot that science without humanity is cruelty. I forgot to see you." He leaned forward, eyes earnest. "I want to make this right. I want to earn your trust." Anaya studied his face, searching for any flicker of deception. The city's neon glow filtered through the curtains, casting shifting patterns on the linoleum floor. She set down her chopsticks and exhaled. "Trust," she echoed. "That's earned over time, not with gestures." He reached across the table, hesitating as his fingers brushed hers. The touch was light, tentative, but it sent warmth spiraling through her. "I have time," he said quietly, "if you'll let me invest it." She withdrew her hand, standing and crossing to the kitchenette. She selected 2 mismatched mugs, filled them with steaming coffee, and returned to the table. He watched her, silent and respectful. She sat and placed a mug before him, then lifted her own. "I need proof that what's between us is real," she said, eyes locked on his. "Not engineered, not imposed." Jax lifted his mug in a small toast. "Then no more experimentation," he promised. "We start from zero, conversation, shared meals, honest moments." She nodded, sipping the bitter brew as it grounded her. The formula's high had faded, leaving in its wake clarity. She craved genuine connection, not a synthetic spark. Outside, the distant hum of traffic reminded them that life went on beyond their fragile truce. They sat in companionable silence, each lost in thought. Minutes passed like hours until Anaya finally spoke again. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we begin again. Without shortcuts." He reached across, covering her hand with his. Her pulse fluttered at the contact. "Tomorrow," he agreed, voice steady. They rose together, plates cleared and mugs empty. Jax moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. He turned, vulnerability etched into his features. "Anaya," he said, "thank you for giving me a chance." She offered a faint smile. "Don't thank me yet," she teased gently. Just show me. He nodded, feeling the weight of her challenge and the promise of something real. She closed the door behind him, and he lingered in the hallway, breath catching as he considered the road ahead. Behind him, the tiny red LED blinked on his lab monitor back at the penthouse. An unauthorized adjustment to the compound's code, a silent saboteur waiting in the wings. Neither of them noticed, but both would soon discover that trust, once cracked, is hard to mend, and that temptation, like formula, is never far away. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows of Mercer Tower's executive floor, painting the boardroom in soft gold. Jax Mercer sat at the head of the long walnut table, dressed in a tailored navy suit that accentuated his broad shoulders. His fingers drummed on the polished surface as he stared at the tablet in front of him. Anaya's vitals, protocols, and trial results scrolled across the display, data he had been poring over since before dawn. The security footage from the night she first drank the prototype glowed in the corner of the screen, blurred to preserve privacy but still unmistakable. Her composure, the spark in her eyes, the moment she met his gaze without fear. The door opened behind him and Vivian DeWitt entered, tablet held like a shield. Mr. Mercer, the West Coast merger has been rescheduled, and Dana Rivers has approved the updated public statement. Jax nodded absently. Thank you, Vivian. Hold my schedule for 2 hours. I need privacy. Vivian hesitated, gaze shifting to the door. Shall I inform Ms. Ramirez? He looked up. No. I'll call her. Vivian stepped back, caught between protocol and curiosity. She bowed slightly and left, closing the door with a soft click. Jax exhaled, the pressure in his chest easing as he tapped the call icon. He watched the dial spin out. First ring, second ring, until Anaya's face appeared on the screen. She was perched on a stool in her modest apartment kitchenette, hair in a loose bun, eyes bright with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Sir, she said, voice steady but warm. Good morning, Anaya, he replied, leaning back in the leather chair. I hope I'm not disturbing your breakfast. She glanced at the ceramic mug in her hand. I was just having coffee. Everything okay? He studied her face, the faint tension around her eyes, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Yes. I have an offer for you. She set the mug down, interest sparking. An offer? He nodded. Meet me at the penthouse in an hour. Anaya's lips curved into a small smile. Yes, sir. I'll be there. The connection ended, and Jax sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound. He stood, smoothing his suit jacket, and walked to the windows. The city spread out beneath him, gleaming towers, busy streets, and the river reflecting the morning light. He inhaled, bracing himself for the next step. Anaya caught the express elevator to the 78th floor, her mind whirring with possibilities. Promotion, assistant, co-researcher, partner? She didn't know what to expect, but a mixture of excitement and nerves fluttered in her chest. When the doors opened, she stepped into the familiar corridor softly lit by recessed LEDs. She paused outside Jax's office, took a breath, and knocked lightly. Come in, he called, voice calm. She entered to find him standing by the hollow screen. He turned and gestured to the chair across from the small conference table. Please sit. She perched on the edge, smoothing her uniform. He tapped a command and the screen lit up with her trial data, graphs illustrating her neural responses, emotional recall maps, and performance metrics. A camera feed flickered in the corner. Last night's shower scene, respectfully blurred but clear enough to show her steady composure. Jax stepped to the head of the table. Anaya, what you accomplished in the last 6 days is unprecedented. Not just as a test subject, but as a collaborator. Her heart beat fast. She forced her voice steady. I did what you asked. He nodded. More than that. You provided real insight, subjective experiences that enriched the quantitative data. You helped refine the formula's stability and controls. She met his gaze. Thank you, sir. He held up a hand. No thanks yet. I'd like to formally offer you the position of Executive Research Liaison. Title, equity options, a seat at quarterly strategy meetings, and Anaya felt her cheeks warm. Equity. He smiled. Yes. You'll share in the success of any product derived from Formula X and its derivatives. You'll have decision-making input for clinical trials and public rollouts. She covered her mouth briefly, stunned. I don't know what to say. Jax walked over and handed her a sleek folder. Review the contract. It includes confidentiality clauses, departmental responsibilities, and a comprehensive benefits package. But I want you beside me, truly beside me, in this venture. Anaya opened the folder, scanning the pages. Executive title, compensation, stock grants. It was beyond anything she could have dreamed. She looked up, eyes shimmering. This is more than I ever expected. He softened. You deserve it. You earned it. She closed the folder and placed it on the table. Sir, I accept. He looked relieved and pleased. Excellent. Welcome aboard. They shook hands, the grip firm and mutual, a partnership sealed. Then he paused, a playful spark in his eye. Shall we finalize the personal benefits? Anaya blinked. He continued, voice deeper. You mentioned one perk that was very important to you. She realized he meant the daily showers. Her pulse fluttered. Yes, the showers. He stood and approached her, offering his arm. After all, I'd hate to deprive my top executive of a morning rinse. She slipped her arm through his, smiling. Lead the way. They exited the office, laughter light between them. In the corridor, Jax hailed the elevator. They stepped inside and he pressed the terrace floor. You know, he said, I hadn't planned to be this generous. She turned to him. Do I need to remind you how you found me? Curiosity may have started this, but trust and respect will carry it forward. He tilted his head. Wise words. The elevator dinged and they stepped onto the terrace landing. Glass railings framed a breathtaking panorama of the city. Jax paused, looking out over the skyline. This view, it never gets old. Anaya joined him at the railing. The breeze teased her hair. It's inspiring. He nodded. We'll build something remarkable here, technology that elevates human potential. And you'll be at the core. She leaned on the railing, fingers tracing the cold metal. Thank you for believing in me. He turned, face earnest. I always did. I just didn't realize how valuable your perspective was until now. They stood side by side in comfortable silence, the morning sun warming their shoulders. The city throbbed beneath them, possibilities unlimited. After a moment, Anaya broke the hush. Jax. He turned to her. Yes. She smiled, confidence shining. Let's make this a new beginning. He nodded, reaching for her hand. To beginnings. They clasped hands, the future wide open before them. As they walked back toward the elevator, a soft chime notified Jax that an urgent message had arrived on his tablet. He glanced down, a flagged email from the head of compliance regarding an unexpected regulation change in biotechnology. His brow furrowed. Anaya noticed. Everything okay? He closed the tablet. A minor hiccup, but nothing we can't handle. She nodded, trust unwavering. Together. The elevator doors slid open onto the executive floor, and they stepped into the bright spaces of Jax's office. The day awaited them, meetings, research discussions, strategic decisions. Yet they moved forward as equals, confidants, partners in a journey that had begun with a sip of glowing liquid and had grown into something far greater. The door closed behind them, leaving the terrace empty except for that one white rose in a glass vase, its petals catching the sunlight. A symbol of transformation and promise. A reminder that extraordinary things often start in the most unexpected ways. And so, in the quiet aftermath of that fateful morning, Anaya and Jax embarked on a path neither could have predicted, together forever without looking back. The end. Enjoyed this story? Hit like, subscribe, and join the Afri family. Your support keeps our stories coming. See you soon.